all nations, including the United States, disband their national and armed forces except for what would be earmarked for the United Nations Peace Force. That all nations, including the United States, carry out this transfer to a point where no state would have the military power to challenge the progressively strengthened United Nations Peace Force. This is merely part of the overall plan to resolve our conflict with communism, not by victory over it, but by merging with it into a world body, since it will have superior military force at its disposal. It will become, by definition, a one-world government.
We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Anthony Hilder,
first Secretary General of the United Nations Organizational Conference in 1945, was Alger Hiss, a convicted Soviet spy. Hiss was one of the primary authors of the United Nations Charter.
And that world order is only going to be enhanced if this newly activated peacekeeping function of the United Nations proves to be effective. That is the only way the new world order will be enhanced.
Gorbachev, or Gorbachev as I call him, reiterated the call for the creation of this Fourth Reich of the Rich, this Hitlerian superstate. And now, in his own words,
чтобы осветить и понять корни того, что мир развернулся в своем движении в другом направлении, к новому мировому порядку, новой цивилизации.
Even that does not describe why the world has changed so much and why the world has turned so much toward a new world order and a new kind of civilization.
Commenting further on these proposals in 1963, Walt Rostow, then chairman of our State Department Policy Planning Board, wrote, quote, "It is a legitimate American national objective to remove from all nations, including the United States, the right to use substantial military force to pursue its own interests. Since this residual right is the root of national sovereignty and the basis for the existence of an international arena of power, it is therefore an American interest to see an end to nationhood as it has been historically defined." Unquote. This is the communist plan to destroy this nation as an independent, freedom-loving power.
And look at our past history. Ever since the turn of the century, every communist government that has taken power has done so with the aid and support and help of our State Department, starting with Russia and ending with Nicaragua. President Carter kicked Somoza out of Nicaragua so the Sandinistas could take over. Our government kicked Batista out of Cuba so Castro could take over. Our government kicked Chiang Kai-shek out of China, disarmed him so Mao Zedong could take over. Down the line, every one of them can be historically documented, and true patriots who were there on the scene have written plenty of information and documentation to back up this claim. The conspiracy is still functioning, is still active, still controls our government. We need to wake up to that fact.
One of the things that they want, I believe, is a new constitution. Already there's organizations created called the Committee on the Constitutional System. I'll talk about them tonight. That organization has advocated the rewriting of our Constitution. They put it in their own writings. Now, they've got 41 men on their board of directors. 15 of the 41 are members of the Council on Foreign Relations. Their chairman, C. Douglas Dillon, wrote in a book that you can read with your own eyes, put out by this committee, saying the American people will never accept the rewriting of the Constitution except under a very severe crisis.
Bob Soller.
About the publication of a book called The Order. This book was written by Anthony Sutton. He is finally exposing the people who really control the Western world and have a great deal of influence on what happens in the Eastern world. He's written a book called The Order, and he followed it up with another volume called Controls Education, How the Order Does It. Finally, there's a third book now, How the Order Creates War and Revolution. For over 150 years, the Skull and Bones Society at Yale University has been selecting 15 new members annually. And upon leaving Yale, these men have become known to each other as the Order. Now, recently, Anthony Sutton came into possession of many of the Order's most secret and delicate documents. Who they are, and what are their goals. They're big names, big money, and big power. They swear allegiance to nothing but the Order. And their plans are directed to a new world order dedicated to world domination through control from cradle to the grave. Now, how the Order creates war and revolution in this, that's Professor Sutton's latest work. He exposes yet another terrifying area of history that the Order is created and controlled for its own insidious purposes. And he writes, quote, "There is no question that the so-called establishment in the United States uses managed conflict, the practice of managing crises to bring about a favorable outcome that is favorable to the elite and is freely admitted. Furthermore, there is no question that decisions of war and peace are made by a few in this elite. And this volume explores some major conflict decisions made by the few in the Order, and the way in which right-left situations have deliberately been created and then placed in a conflict mode to bring about a synthesis." And he clearly shows and reveals that when and why the Order helped create and build the Soviet Union from the ground up to a world power. He goes on to name names, exposing those of the Order who, in influential government and financial positions, added freedom's number one enemy, hated him. He documents the Order's financing of Hitler and the Nazis. He proves conclusively that World War II was not only inevitable, it was also very profitable for the few in the elite. From Harriman to Rockefeller to Bush, members of the Order have been instrumental in the fermenting and the financing of wars and revolution.
If the UN is successful in bringing global government, a neo-Nazistic New World Order would extinguish all freedom for all people.
To build a new world order.
A new world order. A new world order can emerge.
A new world order and a new kind of civilization.
Of a new world order. But what does the new world order mean for countries like ours?
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order. A new world order.